Welcome to the Produce on Purpose podcast, where we explore experiencing life being the real you. I'm your host, Randy Adkins Jr., author, teacher, speaker, preacher, and lifelong learner. Do you ever feel like you're carrying the weight of others' expectations on your shoulders? Well, it's time for you to break free of those chains that bind you and discover a liberating path of authenticity in your life. In this episode, Navigating Life on Your Purpose, we're going to shed some light on an often unnoticed burden of societal expectations. Have you ever been in a place where cultural norms, maybe family expectations, or maybe you have influences and societal pressures that you have on you? You want to be you, the real you. And so we're going to talk about that in this episode. Let's start off with our dad joke. Why did the clock go to therapy? It wanted to make time for its true self and stop ticking to everyone else's expectations. Share this joke with someone this week because as producers, laughter nourishes our creativity, fosters our mindset, and unlocks the gates to innovation in our souls. This episode, we're going to talk about navigating life on your purpose. So let's start off with scripture. Our scripture today is going to be coming from Romans 12:2. And it states, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." In this scripture, there's an emphasis on the importance of not conforming to societal expectations and norms, but rather being transformed by the renewing of your mind. And this scripture, it encourages individuals like you and me to break free from the mold of the societal expectations and pressures and seek a higher purpose that is aligned with God's will. And this describes something that would be good and pleasing and perfect to Him. And that is the goal. In this episode, I want us to think about how we can let go of these societal expectations and begin to embrace authenticity. That means being the real you. And it calls for a transformation of your mind. It is something for you to be able to shift away from conforming and conformity and begin a journey towards discovering your true self and your purpose. By renewing your mind and aligning with God's will, you can then begin to have the courage to live life on your own terms, in the terms of your purpose, not by these external pressures or societal expectations. And what can this do for you? It can change your life. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want us to move forward and begin to see how you can be the real you. And that sometimes these societal pressures that we are going to describe today that are often unnoticed, sometimes if we're not aware of them, they may actually be controlling how we are behaving and how we're acting in this world. So let's start off with the first point in the section that we're going to talk about, and it is the weight of societal expectations. I want to start us off with this metaphorical backpack. I'm about to go traveling, and I always carry my backpack with me. But in the backpack, we can end up putting a lot of weight into our backpack throughout life. And it's really about these expectations, some of them spoken and some of them not spoken. And these societal expectations can come from different places. So I'm going to name off a few and you can see if some of these are in your backpack. And I encourage you get a piece of paper, or if you have something on your phone, be able to write these particular ones down and see which ones you may have. So one of them could be that you have an expectation of career and success. And this is an expectation that you should pursue a stable, high-paying job, climb the corporate ladder, that you achieve certain levels of financial status. That can be an societal expectation. Secondly, you could have one for your marriage and your family. And these types of societal expectations come with being married at a certain age, or having children by a certain age, or conforming to traditional family structures. It may be something where you are pressured by a partner to settle down. And so are you being who you really need to be? And in this, it can also have another weight, which is called gender roles. And this is an expectation that particular genders dress a particular way and they act a particular way. And you can't pursue particular things depending on your masculinity or your femininity. There's also societal expectations that come through education. And this is a big one because we're all kind of put into this place. If you have any type of education as you're growing up, it's to pursue higher education or specific degrees or go to different types of institutions. Some people only go to high prestigious institutions because of family or tradition. These are expectations that can sometimes be put on you from the outside. There's also an expectation or a weight that could be put in your backpack called appearance and body image. And it's your beauty standards, these beauty standards that can sometimes be put on you from outside. Individuals may feel pressure to conform to looking a particular way, or having a particular skin color, or being a particular way in the way that they look from the outside. And these can have self-esteem problems. The other weights are status and materialism. Maybe you are pursuing material wealth because of the expectations of those that are around you. You can also have a weight of religion or belief systems. These expectations are that you follow specific religious beliefs or cultural practices. And if you deviate, then you end up being either outcast from a social group or those that are around you. Additionally, you can have parental expectations that are weights that you are putting in this backpack. And they're of ones for their children, for careers, marriages, and lifestyles, that there's an expectation or social pressure that's never actually ever spoken, but it's there. Also, there could be friendship and social life weights. These weights are where you are expected to have a vibrant social circle and life. And sometimes this can be showing up in your life as loneliness or introversion. It can be stigmatized by society because you're not out there with others. The other place where you can have another weight is body language and expressiveness. The society can sometimes dictate to us how individuals should express their emotions, or how they are to show up in specific situations, how you are supposed to show joy or show sadness or anger, even sometimes in church scenes, and how you're supposed to worship versus someone else. Those can also be pressures. There can be pressures of independence or self-sufficiency. Some societies value that you are very independent and self-sufficient, that you should not need anyone else. And that is a societal expectation that you could end up putting in that backpack. Some other ones are cultural traditions, and this can depend on the way you grew up, depending on your holidays and your rituals and your family gatherings. You may be different from your family in what you believe in those cultural traditions. These are all social expectations and contracts that you have to deal with on a daily basis. And we can sometimes have this backpack that has been weighted down by these cultural norms or family influence or societal standards. How tough can that be to be able to walk around with that weight all the time? So it's important for us to understand that, these differences can be very different depending on where you grew up and what families you grew up in. However, I believe no matter who you are or what family you grew up in or what area you grew up in, some of these weights you could be carrying in this backpack that we are talking about. So what we are going to really move towards is that visualizing that backpack. I want you to begin to visualize all of these societal expectations that you can begin to unpack your backpack, because that's the only way you can start to become the real you, the one that you were born to be, that when you were in your mom's womb, that God already knew who he created you to be. And we want you to get back to you. And I'm going to invite you at this moment to reflect maybe how some of these expectations have influenced you and your life choices and decisions. Because remember, the way that we think will then also affect the way that we feel. And the way that we feel will also then affect how we behave and how we act. And I want you to get to a place where you can be liberated from some of these social expectations, these cultural norms, or family expectations that you have been growing up with. And if you have written down all of those different ones we talked about earlier, I want you, as we go through this episode, to be able to mark off maybe ways that you can start to be liberated. So the second area I want to talk about today is you actually being free from these expectations, and how can you begin to let go of those expectations. One of the things that I'm going to encourage you to do is, number one, is to identify what those particular expectations are in as much detail as you can. An example could be that you've been told societal expectation is that you don't wear white after fall or after Labor Day. If you are told that, and that's a social expectation, but you wear white, is something wrong, or you're supposed to wear white. I don't know. One of the whatever it may be, you have to be able to write it down in specificity and understand whether or not that has changed your behavior. Because sometimes we might find that because of a social expectation that we are running up against, that we haven't talked to anybody else about, that we are acting a particular way. And sometimes we could be acting in a way of trying to just make sure we are doing everything but that social expectation. But I want you to think about it so that you can get to a place to begin to let it go. And as you begin to let go and identifying those particular expectations, whether it's family, whether it is something that's going on in your career or what you've been pushing for, and how much stress has this put on your life? And can you actually let go and think about, number two, after you have defined and said, hey, here's what it is. I want you to then define what's the worst that could happen if you let go of that expectation in your life. Maybe now you decide that you're going to just be you in a situation. You're going to go ahead and eat that chocolate the way you want to eat it. You like to eat it around the edges. That's what you're going to do. Even though the social norm is not to eat it around the edges, you're going to do it that way. And I'm going to encourage you to be able to embrace who you are so that your life can be transformed by those things. The Bible is very clear to us that there are going to be these types of social norms. That's why in Romans 12:2, what we started off with, it tells us that we are not to conform to all of these social norms and expectations, but we are to be transformed in our mind, to be renewed in our mind. And I'm thinking that if we can consistently think about the best ways that we can then say, I'm going to let go of this social expectation. I talk about in my book, at the very end of the book, about how I believe it started off for me with some of the social expectations and norms. It was when I first came into kindergarten and we were told to sit on the white line, crisscross applesauce. And the idea is that you were supposed to sit on the line just like everyone else, and that you were to continue to conform in that manner. Otherwise, if you were outside of that, you were then, something was wrong, or you were then asked to sit back down, or sometimes you were put in a place on the side and asked to do better. And so conforming was a part of our education system, of course, to help with order and some other things. But I believe that because of that, for me, it caused me to start to conform in particular areas and then look for escapes in other areas so that you can allow your creativity to shine. Your creativity is very, very important. And so I'm going to also talk about here in this section, because of this liberating piece, is remember the caterpillar? The caterpillar has to go through a transformation, just like in Romans 12:2. It has to go through a transformation. The caterpillar is just looks like a worm with a bunch of legs, and it eats all off of the leaves. But at some point, there's a change that has to happen in that caterpillar. There's a metamorphosis or a transformation that occurs when that caterpillar goes into a cocoon, and out of the cocoon, it's still the essence of what a caterpillar is, but it comes out as a butterfly. And the butterfly sometimes is the actual breaking of the cocoon of expectations, and it allows our wings to spread. At one point, we as a family did get one of those gardens where you get the caterpillars, and then you also get the where you sit it together and allow it to cocoon. And we watched it as it cocooned up, and then we ended up with butterflies, and then we let them go when they finally came out and they were mature enough to fly on their own. That's the same thing with us, is that you have a butterfly within you. You have just been in a cocoon of all of these expectations in life. And I want you to be able to break free. And as you break free, I want you to move to this next level of what we're going to talk about. And it's embracing the real you, the authentic self. This is where you begin to do some self-discovery. What is it that you really like to do? It's not because your mom told you, or because somebody else from the outside said you look like you're such and such, or you look like you can do this. No, what are you driven to do? What are your dreams and your desires and your expectations? Because I truly believe if God has put in every one of us a purpose and a meaning, he's put one in you. And your purpose and your meaning of who you are, whether it is for you to be able to go out and garden the best and do a great garden outside, or maybe you are a person that is a writer and you are supposed to be writing. Get out there and just start doing it. You find the time to do what is best for you. And then secondly, you want to find like-minded individuals that will be like you. You will begin to attract them if you continue to do the things that you love to do and be who you were always meant to be. Instead of attracting things that are not the things you like to do, if you're doing and you are following up with that consistently in your life, you're going to start to see a different you emerge. That butterfly that's been in that cocoon forever, you're going to be able to do that. Here's some practical ways of how you can reconnect with yourself. One of them I talk about consistently is journaling. I think journaling is one of the best ways for us to sometimes get to a place where we sometimes forget where we've come from. But if you are writing, and whatever the consistency is, if it's every day, that's fine. If it's on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever your writing is, write down what you see in yourself. What are some of the things that are going on at the moment, and how do you feel about those things? And then what are your desires? What have you gone through? Put that down. What are some of the things that you desire? Put that down at that moment in time. And how do you feel? Put all of those down, and consistently do that over a time frame. And the other thing I want you to do is I want you to meditate on by just listening. And I want you to seek guidance of mentors. That's the last thing, is look for those that have been where you want to go. Because I think it's important for us, when we begin to take an authenticity inventory of ourselves, this is where you begin to say, what is my core values? What are my passions? What are my aspirations? And then I suggest that you reflect on how you align your expectations, your values, your passions, and your aspirations in your life. How do you align that? What are some of the things that you're doing that aligns with who you really are? And it just takes small steps to becoming more authentic on a consistent basis. As I talk about in the book, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life, Being the Real You, sometimes we have the masks. If you continue to do what you are been born to do and authentically been born to do, those masks, those expectations, those cocoons, they begin to break off and break away. And the real you begins to come out so that you can stand up and be you. I will caution you. This is part 4. There's going to sometimes be fear and resistance when you start to do this, but you can begin to overcome the fears that come up, because maybe you've never shown up as your real self. And what if nobody likes the real me? What if nobody is going to be receptive to what I'm talking about or doing? But I encourage you that you can overcome these fears by starting to be the real you. And those who will not accept you, they don't need to be around you. And I'm going to encourage you that there will be people who will be attracted to who you really are. And those are the people you want to be around you. I want you to begin to affirm yourself that you have already been born with everything that you've ever needed. And that if you would just connect to that, that you will then see this cocoon be broken out, that you'll see your wings to be something that you can now fly with, that your purpose and who you are, you will begin to have a different experience in this world. And you don't have to allow fear to drive you in anything that you do. Lastly, I want you to remember that you have a purpose. Your purpose is not like anyone else's, and your purpose is unique to you. Your purpose is the thing that's going to be the pathway that's going to drive you to a more joyful life. That's why I do this. I am doing this so that you can have a more fulfilling life, that you can be walking in a greater expectations. And so get to journaling. That's one of the practical ways I want you to begin doing that. But here's one of the things I want you to do out of this particular conversation is I encourage you to craft a purpose statement. That's right. What is your purpose? And I want you to reflect on your values and your aspirations from your purpose statement. Values, I have aspirations. I'm going to begin to move into a place that I now have purpose and meaning in what I'm doing. And so my purpose statement is something I can read on a daily basis that affirms who I am. And I'm going to integrate this into my life on a daily basis. Step 1, you're going to begin to reflect on your values. What do you really value? Do you value your family? Do you value your creator? Do you value your work? Do you want your work to be meaningful? Is this something that you can really think about? Are you looking to leave a legacy in this world? Are you going to leave your mark in this world? I believe that you have the ability to really craft a purpose statement that will Be something that will change this world. And so in this episode, we talked about many different things. And first of all, we began by talking about the weight of this backpack. If you can put down that purpose statement, you can begin to release all of those different weights that sometimes can be there from social expectations. And those weights you can begin to check off. Go back to that list. Check off those lists. Also, I want you to journal. I want you to journal what are the things that are happening every day. And are you getting to a place where you can now put down your purpose statement, where you are putting down what am I been born for? What am I good at? I know that I have been born to take information that sometimes could be complex, and I have been born to be able to share that through writing. I've been born to be able to share that through teaching, and I've been born to share that through speaking. And I am going to leave a legacy for all to know that this information can change their lives. That's my purpose statement. I know that I have been born to do that. What have you been born to do? What are you breaking out of the cocoons for? And if you can break out of these cocoons of social expectation and norms, you can then become authentically you. You can then become the one that has always been there. And some of us are at different spaces of becoming more of the real you that has always been there. But you want to continue to do that because as time goes on, these social expectations and pressures sometimes come up and we don't even know that they're there. They're unsuspecting sometimes. And so I encourage you to do that as quickly as you can. And as you do that, I want to hear back from you. How did you get to a place where you are now navigating your life on purpose? Navigating life on your purpose. That's the title of this episode. And we have now embarked on a journey where you are going to be personally liberated and free. And most of all, today, you're going to produce on purpose and you're going to be the real you. See you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this illuminating episode. And I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, our cherished listeners. Your presence and engagement enrich our podcast journey, and I'm truly honored to be a part of your growth and personal transformation. To ensure that you never miss an episode filled with insights and inspiration, hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform that you are listening to us right now. And if you found today's discussion helpful and of value, I ask kindly that you take a moment and leave a review. This will help me with feedback and it fuels my passion to continue to deliver this type of content that will resonate with you. Sharing is caring, right? And I invite you to share this episode with your friends and your family. Let's create a ripple effect of healing and empowerment together. Unlock the secrets to unleashing your true potential, aligning with your life's purpose, and embracing the power of authenticity. In the book and audiobook, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You, you can find a future of fulfillment. I encourage you, go to randyadkinsjr.com and get your copy of the audiobook and book of Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You. I thrive on your input. So if you have thoughts to share or want to delve deeper into these transformative topics, visit randyadkinsjr.com and leave me your feedback. Your words have the power to shape the future content of our podcast. Thank you for being such an integral part of this podcast family. And until next time, remember, that every step that you take towards being the real you is a step towards unlocking your boundless potential. Stay tuned, stay inspired, and above all, today, be the real you and produce on purpose.